Hello, and welcome back to the NoScore Review Show. I am your host, Nick Green, and joining me for this episode is Scott Milne. Scott,
Hi all.
It's been so long since I last saw you.
It feels like it happened last time a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Nice. Today we are reviewing The Bad Batch Season 2. This review will be spoiler-free for the first little bit. I won't guarantee no spoilers for Season 1 in our general thoughts, but no spoilers for Season 2 in the first bit. We will do an explicit spoiler warning before we get into our highlights and lowlights. So yeah, without further ado, we will get into our general thoughts for Season 2. Scott, what did you think?
I enjoy Season 2. It has quite the huge tone shift to it compared to Season 1. With Season 1, I mean, obviously this is a Filoni project. So we are coming like hot out of Clone Wars, and we're still kind of sticking to like clone culture, but obviously, you know, we're with the Bad Batch, right? You know, they aren't your typical clones, which I feel like are a pretty good was pretty good entry point because it allowed you to have enough diversifying personalities. You know, not that the clones didn't have different personalities, but obviously a little bit more with the Bad Batch. But definitely with 2, it's just like, okay, like, no, we're now into the Empire now. Very much. And, you know, how we're kind of looking at these guys, and, you know, is it all just simply still, you know, Clone Wars fun and games, or like is it a lot more dangerous now? Especially with them still being split up from Crosshair. So
yeah. That was a surprising, I guess. So yeah, we'll get into a bit of spoilers for Season 1. Yeah, that was a surprising twist, I guess you could call it, for the end of Season 1 for me. I thought they might have gone the like conventional, like Crosshair comes to the good side with them at the very end and they're all back together, but no, Crosshair stuck to his guns and stuck with the Empire. So that was an interesting direction to go for Season 2. And I think on that side of things for this season, not getting into too much detail, but that was my favorite part of this season for me, was all the Crosshair stuff and his arc. That was easily the best and most in line with the tone from Season 1. Season 1, I agree that the Bad Batch was a great entry point. It gave us the longest running kind of consistent group of clones to follow. Whereas in Clone Wars, you kind of had little sects here and there.
We Cody did and like Rex and all that, but
and like Fives would reappear every now and then, and like Echo and all them every now and then. But this was like the most consistent group we've followed for a large chunk of time. It was a good season, but it definitely felt like kind of Filoni almost going back to the roots of like early Clone Wars, where it was a televised, like broadcasted kids show. So there were way more like
kind of
adventure of the week.
I was going to exactly say, we definitely got our fill of that, but that's where I felt it then really helped to drive Omega, you know? Because obviously she's very much not like the rest of the clones, right? You know, like she's adolescent clone, but even then, you know, like she's a she. So, and, you know, bring a kid along who, unlike in Clone Wars where you have child soldier Ahsoka, you know, Omega, like she wasn't even really trained in too much of military combat, unlike the rest of the clones. So, you know, it's just like she is a kid along for adventures, but, you know,
it's also a different kind of path, like comparing it to Boba Fett, right? And I mean, because he is a clone, so you kind of get like a different path split of an adolescent clone being raised by a group of like soldiers and
Yeah.
mercenaries.
Which I mean, definitely, in season 1 was one thing, because like she still like it's all of like the mystery and adventure to her, right? Because she like it was her first time ever off of Camino, and like you had that initial moment where it's just like, what's this? It's dirt. So
yeah,
and so like everything is brand new to her, but then obviously now, because like like there has been like a little bit of a time, like it does show a little bit of aging in season 2. I mean, she's grown out her hair and all that, so like it looks like
yeah,
maybe a year or so has passed that we're now.
yeah. Some time has
Yeah.
passed between season 1 and 2.
So we're definitely we've definitely departed the safe place that is Clone Wars, and much more embroiled into the Imperial machine. So
Yeah, yeah. I my in terms of like expectations going into this one, I was blown away by season 1. That like easily is probably, it might be in my top 5 Disney Star Wars like products, I guess, for lack of a better term. I didn't watch it initially when it came out, so I visited it, I think, after Boba Fett.
Okay.
And I guess it also helped having watched it after Boba Fett, because I was kind of let down a little bit by that show. So I was starting from a low point, and then got my hopes raised after that. Season 1 was amazing. Every episode in that show felt integral and important, and had some weight to it beyond just like an adventure of the week. There were still a couple episodes that had that kind of through line a little bit, but there were still like important plot points, and if nothing else, there were still like awesome guest appearances from different characters, which was fantastic.
Which my running thought with that, and I don't think this is too much into spoilers, but to me, just with with how much Filoni is now working on so many different Star Wars things right now, this is where it feels like sometimes you have comparative before and after models with things. Because with Bad Batch season 1, you get to see Shen is her name, the one bounty hunter that works with Boba Fett.
I know who you're talking about. Boba Fett's like right hand, right? In Book of Boba Fett.
Why do I forget her name?
Oh man, I can't remember either.
Oh, Fennec. Fennec Shand.
Fennec Shand.
Yes, there we go.
Yeah, you were close.
So they initially had her, and then we got the other bounty hunter,
Cad Bane.
Yeah, which then you then directly saw in Boba Fett, right? And then now in Bad Batch season 2, maybe not as much character stuff, but definitely a lot of like environmental stuff. You're seeing Carrie from Bad Batch season 2 in Mando season 3. Like some of the different stuff that happens on Coruscant, like they're kind of highlighting both. So
yeah, and they go more into the cloning stuff as well. More so this than
we're still really trying to really explain,
connect everything.
Somehow Palpatine came back, so
yeah, really trying to right that wrong. I don't know that we'll ever be able to do that. But yeah, I think it was good. I think I don't think I will revisit the entire season of season 2 when I go back and rewatch. It'll be kind of how a lot of fans go back to Clone Wars and rewatch the select few. I think about half of the season has to do with like Crosshair and the more Imperial side of things, and the like actual overarching plot of the clones being like ostracized and excommunicated. And then also, incorporating Crosshair into it as well. That was easily the highlight of the show for me.
Same.
So, but I don't think it was bad. It's still, it was still beautifully animated. There were still some really fun episodes. The one on Kashyyyk was really cool. We got a tiny taste of Jedi with the Bad Batch again. In terms of arcs too, aside from Crosshair, there wasn't a ton. I felt like Tech probably got the biggest arc.
I was gonna say, kind of that relationship between Omega and Tech, where
we can get more into that with spoiler
spoilers.
territory,
but
though.
well, yeah, we have like our own mini spoiler to stick around, watch Bad Batch season 2, and then hear our thoughts on it. So
yeah. But yeah, I guess we'll just segue right into that. That's our kind of general thoughts. So we'll get into our highlights and lowlights now. So this will be your official spoiler warning for Bad Batch Season 2. If you don't want to know any details, pause the video, come back once you are ready to hear us talk about the nitty gritty. So yeah, just carrying on our convo about Tech.
Yeah.
He definitely gets the most character work, which is, it's interesting because, like, just jumping straight to it, it's interesting that they give him the most character work to kill him off, because it feels so much like like a death fake out. Like, we'll see him again later. So looking at it from that lens, it's kind of weird. Like, okay, great. Like, it would be one thing if it was like hard and fast, definitive, Tech is not with us anymore, RIP. But yeah, we'll see. I'm a little skeptic on him staying dead.
But to coincide with that, just like how much Omega is kind of really forcing these guys to like open up and like really realize that it's just like, yes, like we're long past the Clone Wars now. Like we are living in an Imperial age, and it goes, we have a target on our back, but you know, at the same time, like we can't be doing this dangerous stuff all the time, you know.
That I think I would have preferred them lean into that more, because we get bits and pieces of it and hints throughout the show. Kind of the two arcs, if you want to call them that, of like raising a kid in this militaristic environment is not good for Omega. And then also the kind of plot line of, is the Bad Batch kind of going to help out with the rebellion and start the uprising, versus them just going and hiding in a hole for the rest of their days?
I mean, you know, like we've already seen like some fracturing with that. I mean, Echo went off to go help Rex with you know, what I'm guessing is rebellion activities. You know, they showed us one kind of concrete thing. One of the episodes where like they're stealing stuff from like the one ship.
Right. They rescued clones that were being sent to the lab.
Which tied into what I imagine is going to be like the large overarching plot of like season 3. Well, with tying more into like even more cloning stuff. But touching on Crosshair, with him.
Yeah, let's get into some highlights for the show.
He has definitely affirmed, like especially at the beginning season, he's Team Imperial for the win. But then just slowly seen. I mean, I love that initial episode where he was with Cody. And Cody just being, even like Cody starting to just question stuff. I mean,
not even just Crosshair. We get more Cody and him like kind of turning, right?
And them just realizing it's just like, sure, we can be loyal to the Empire, but the Empire is not going to be loyal to us. And you know, that's where Crosshair at first was kind of like drawing a line in the sand, but then jumping forward to I want to get the name of the episode. Tipping Point, right?
Tipping Point? I think it was earlier than that.
The Outpost. When he's on that frozen planet, and like he's seeing where it's just like the Imperial COs are just like, no, you clones at this point are just leftover tools from from like a year old but bygone war. Either do what you're told, or no,
we'll
we're going to
replace
feed
you.
you to the wolves. So
Yeah.
Crosshair, after a whole bunch of episodes, realizing it was just like, okay, so maybe he's not maybe fully 100% back with the Bad Batch, but definitely starting to realize where it's just like, no, I'm gonna just eventually be cannon fodder as well. So
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. They didn't rush it. I felt the pacing of it all worked really well, from him going from that hard and fast Imperial soldier,
mhm.
because we also get a bit of him in the clone conspiracy like double episode,
Yep,
where he's still playing a part in the Imperial
yep,
cleanup crew effectively. Um, but then, yeah, the Outpost was a fantastic
yeah.
episode where he gets to um, bond with those few left
Yeah,
clones on that
which
outpost.
I feel like kind of goes back and also shows just like how just the regular clones are like just handling stuff. Like, yeah, they're still doing what they're
Hmm.
told, but unlike the Bad Batch, or some of like the bigger name people like your Rex and your Echo, they're just like, we don't have the ambition nor like the will left to like try to tear down this whole new thing that we actually spent like over a decade trying to unintentionally build. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah, they are good soldiers following
yeah,
orders, and because they don't know what else to do,
yeah.
right?
um which I think then ties back into like Omega's whole thing as well, where it's just like, I don't want my family to fall apart. I don't want these guys just sticking to like how they were as clone comrades in ours, where it's just like,
There's more to life than just being a
yeah,
soldier,
yeah,
right?
and
You can build a life for
right,
yourself.
and we can be like how Rex eventually was in Rebels, where it's just like he went on to have like a whole long life, as opposed to
Hmm.
just dying. So
Yeah, constantly on the run and
yeah,
hiding. Um, yeah, I really enjoyed the Crosshair stuff. There were some bits here and there with the Bad Batch I enjoyed, um, but ultimately I would have preferred a little bit more work with like Hunter and
Hunter,
Wrecker here and
yeah,
there.
it kind of did feel sometimes like they were a little bit more on the back burner. Like it's just like,
Yeah, they were very much one note. And I mean, to be fair, I think Hunter and Wrecker did get more bonding time with Omega in
yeah,
the first season.
true.
Um, but yeah,
Like Hunter was kind of really establishing himself, like he's like the dad of
yeah,
them all, right? Like he's really trying to look out for his crew and stuff,
yeah.
which is established very well. Like he has a lot of concern for Omega, which
Hmm.
carries through in season 2, but it just stays a little bit static with it all.
Yeah,
um
yeah. They definitely felt more one
yeah,
note in their
yeah.
episodes. Um,
And as we were talking about before, just with Tech, it was the episode,
Entombed? No, not Entombed. They
yeah,
they got trapped so many
so
times in this
yeah,
season. It's ridiculous.
I think it's
What was it?
Pabu is what it's called. But
Was that where they were entombed or like trapped? No, it was the crossing, wasn't it? Where they like are lost their ship, but then have to. Or no, it was. Yeah, it had to have been the crossing because that's when they were getting the mining
they were getting the mining stuff. Yeah.
stuff.
Um
That was the start of the like tech
yeah,
Omega
yeah, yeah,
arc, right?
which I felt was much needed, because as well,
Hmm.
it had been feeling like Tech is just like, he's just the smart know-it-all guy, who is
Hmm.
just,
Yeah.
he himself was still stuck in Clone Wars times, and
Hmm.
so for Omega to like just kind of shake him out of that a little bit,
Hmm. Get him out of his
yeah,
shell.
was pretty good, and him actually emoting a little bit more. So
Yeah. Well, and that little talk too was really nice, of like, just because I process things differently from you doesn't mean I don't process them at
yeah,
all. That was a really nice moment
very
between them.
much.
Um, yeah. Do you have a favorite episode out of this season?
I would probably say it was the one Crosshair one. I think it's called Solitary Clone, episode 3.
The first Crosshair episode.
Yeah, where it's it was also showing, you know, remnants of separatist stuff.
Yeah, they had that whole like the clone barracks with the big memorial wall and everything. That was
too.
stunning.
Which, I mean, that is like a whole nother thing with this season, is I felt like a lot of the visual animation stuff was
Man, ever since they did season 7 of Clone Wars, like it's so gorgeous. Like it's what I wanted Clone Wars to be the entire show. I'm glad we're getting it now. But man, it is just so pretty.
And just like a lot of color palettes and choices and environmental shots throughout the show are just beautiful to see. Like it definitely is. Some of it definitely has a little bit more artistic edge to it than kind of like a realism edge or what you'd have with it.
For sure.
But I feel like it helps the colors and the artistic choices with stuff really reflect what's going on in the episode, and like what's going on with Galaxy and what's going on with the Bad Batch.
Sure.
So.
I do enjoy the kind of remix that the Bad Batch is like making with their armor, and stuff. They like converted to like an orange and blue kind of palette with their whole getup. It still makes me wish we got a Clone Commando series really badly. And even I think one of the like commandos is actually like one of the like main high up officers in the Bad Batch. It's like, I don't remember his name specifically, but he's got like the dark gray and yellow accents on his armor. But yeah, it does make me wish we got that. But I really enjoyed the group that is the Bad Batch. The characters I really enjoy. My favorite episode also obviously would be a Crosshair one. It's probably the Outpost. That was that moment at the very end when he shoots that little shit of a Imperial officer. Was great. I also just absolutely love the score for Crosshair's like theme. That like really like Blade Runner-y like sci-fi synth. It was so good, and it's like it was such a like haunting score for like the clone remnants, right? I think it worked absolutely great. I really appreciate that they're able to, like with this and like Andor and Mando especially, like I'm glad that they've been able to find these amazing composers to make these new notable sounds for Star Wars. It gives me hope for a new hope, if you will, for the future of Star Wars without John Williams. So Crosshair stuff was really good. I would have appreciated more, like especially with the sheer amount of episodes in this season. There was so many. It was like what, 20?
Just 16.
16. Okay, yeah. It was the same as the first season, wasn't it?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. It was quite a few episodes, but it definitely felt like a tone shift between episodes a lot of times. You had that like fun racing episode with tech.
Not pod racing.
But not pod racing. There's different kinds of racing. And then you had the stark contrast of Crosshair's stuff with the Empire. Another really cool highlight we didn't touch on. We got a Ian McDermott cameo with the Emperor. That was really cool.
Yeah, that was great.
that was so good. That one, and then the Genji. Gunji? What's his name?
Gunji. So,
Gunji.
I did actually, yeah. Like, want to touch back on with like the Emperor showing up, but like it was like a whole Senate episode, and it's just like we haven't had something like this since the Clone Wars, where like there would be a couple Senate episodes with Padme and stuff. And they had that new girl. Oh man.
Well, she was also in the Clone Wars, wasn't she? That senator?
I think so.
Oh, I was on season 2. Crap.
Yeah.
What was it? What is her name? Commerce Guild Senator? Jennifer Hale voiced her?
No
maybe?
way.
Or maybe that's someone else, just a random cast member. No, it is her, Senator Chuchi.
Okay, yeah, Chuchi.
Jennifer Hale.
That's great. But just having all that and showing that because obviously, yeah, like a lot of like it still is like a full standing Senate. I mean, it still is like a puppet Senate. But them still being senators who were through like the Clone Wars and stuff, and then just like I mean, they were our army, right? Like we're not ready to throw them away, unlike the Imperial Army's so ready to. And just having like that whole duplicity episode where it's just like it kind of first shows, I mean, even though it's something we're long used to, it's just like if you're gonna get away with stuff in the Imperial Army, you better be ready to get away with it. If you get
well, and they even succeeded, right? Like as far as they could, but then the Emperor just comes in and shuts it down.
Yeah.
Like you can have all your cards, all your ducks in a row, whatever adage you want to say. But like it doesn't even matter in comparison to the like grip he has on the Republic, and I mean the Empire now.
Which he totally still has like his old senator face as well, where he will still appeal to the other senators, but it's just like, but at the same time, I'm the Emperor now, and ultimately what I say goes. So it's just like, yes, we'll have clone benefits, but as well, let's start enlisting. So
yeah, the classic political answer. But yeah, him and Gunji were the only big cameos, I think, really. And I guess Bail Organa was another cameo guest appearance.
For just that brief little bit there. So, yeah.
Oh, I guess we got more Rex, too. That was a nice return.
Yeah. More clones. Who knew you'd see clones in a clone? So,
right? Who could have thought? Yeah. We both, I believe, watched it weekly, right, as it came out. I am looking forward to rewatching it and binging all of the Crosshair episodes together to see how they measure out in terms of pacing. But yeah, I definitely want to revisit those episodes in the future, especially once I might do a rewatch before season 3 comes out, depending on how quickly they have a turnaround on that one. I'm also interested to see how long this show will go on for. It feels like it could wrap up next season if they do like a big clone like uprising against the Empire, like one kind of final hurrah, right? And then like Rex just barely escapes for Rebels.
I mean that's the whole thing, right? It's like, hey, what's going to be the ultimate fate of the Bad Batch, right? Because I mean, we have never seen them in Rebels or something like Andor
but I mean, and with how Filoni is operating the Star Wars universe now, like they don't really have to have shown up in Rebels for them to stick around, because there are Clone Wars characters that made it all the way to Mando and Book of Boba Fett. So post Empire. So I wouldn't be surprised if they don't like kill them off. But giving them like a big hurrah of like, and a really like tragic, I mean, it would also really fit in line with the whole tone of the show, but like doing a whole season 3, like Noble Team off them one at a time type thing. I'm not ready emotionally for that, but I think it could be a very interesting and compelling season. So yeah, we'll
Yeah,
see.
like I'll be interested to see what sort of the emotional impact will be with, Tech coming back, because
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and I imagine too, especially if they wrap up in season 3, they'll get the whole batch back together with
yeah,
Crosshair as well, I
yeah,
imagine.
because that's
Um,
what that's something they're still gunning for, is like, still trying to rescue all those clones from like the, super clone facility of the Empire. So pretty
yeah.
much. I mean, actually, that was like another little scene I enjoyed. In the finale was like when you had Tarkin and what's his name from Rogue One,
Oh, Krennic?
Krennic. Yes, yeah, I love them being
Yeah.
there where they're just like, okay, like these are the grand plans of the Imperial Army that we're going over here, and things that are like
Yep.
the absolute will of the Emperor. Like this is
Mhm.
us planning us being the planners of stuff, and which don't warrant like a Vader scene or anything. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like that would be too easy enough thing, but like Vader isn't really like a planner for the Empire, he's the enforcer. So
Mhm.
kind of
Yeah.
seeing the actual machinations of the higher ups going on was pretty cool, and serve as like that nice opposite to Andor, where you're seeing like the micro politics of like what's
Mhm.
going on with the Empire. So you kind of see both like the grand scale and like the small scale there. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I really also appreciated, this was something I loved about the first season, was that it was like a perfect example of, and especially now with Andor out as well, that Star Wars can be about things that aren't the Jedi and still be compelling. Like season 1, apart from the intro of the
Yeah.
first episode, you get zero Jedi, which I actually
Yeah.
loved. Like I didn't think, like that's what most people go to Star Wars for, is the space wizards with laser swords.
Shout
But
out to
like
Michael
season
Bisley.
1 of Bad Batch, yeah, exactly, yeah. I thought it can be done. They proved it with season 1 and
Yeah.
Andor. But I think season 2 did that as well. They did bring in
Yeah.
Gunji for an episode, but even still, like that was an isolated adventure of the week
Yeah.
episode, so it didn't impede on the Bad Batch being the focus, which
Yeah.
is great. Um, so I do hope they keep that trend up with season 3, honestly, because I think that it brings too much into the
Yeah.
mix with the Jedi
Um,
and Sith.
I
They could do maybe a little bit of Inquisitor stuff, maybe
I'm interested to
here
see
and
what
there.
goes on with them and Sid, because that was a
Yeah, that
whole other thing
was
as well. Was like them just kind of saying adios to her, in
yeah,
a
but
way.
then yeah, that felt like kind of a weird plot point in this
Yeah.
season for me. It was kind of like very much on the back burner of like, oh, are they on like good terms? Are they
Or
working together? Are they
yeah.
not? They kind of just like fucked off and said bye,
and
Sid.
and and and,
Um,
and I mean, she did kind of like have the threat there of just like, you boys better watch your back now. But then a little bit later on, it's just she was still kind of helping.
but then she was remorseful.
Yeah.
That was kind of a odd. I loved their dynamic in the first
Hmm.
season, but it felt like it took a bit of a
I
backseat
mean,
a little bit.
because like even at the beginning of this season, she is what really helped them propel into Adventure of the Week, right? Where it's just like,
Well, yeah,
I got you
totally.
this job this week, boys. Now go show us what you can do.
Yep.
So
That's the catalyst for
yeah,
most of their
yeah.
episodes.
So that's gonna be, yeah, like the interesting thing with season 3. It's just like, are we still gonna be getting those Adventures of the Week? And if so, like what is gonna be like our launching point for those? Are we gonna be
hmm
going back to Sid, or
Maybe they'll replace Sid with like Rex, and it'll be more so like Adventure of the Week helping the clone uprising cause, which could work well.
yeah,
Like then you get those isolated episodes, but then they're playing
yeah,
into a bigger thing, kind of how season 1
yeah.
did.
And then yeah, like I feel like that would be then kind of taking cues from Rebels a little bit, where it's just like,
Yeah,
yeah,
for
this
sure.
is our plot of the week of getting the Empire. So,
I hope they use that sparingly
yeah.
though. I would have preferred less episodes, honestly, and had them pack more of a
Mhm.
punch. So we'll see going forward. But ultimately, I would recommend this season.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, it's definitely like, even if you haven't seen any of the second season, I would still recommend those Crosshair
The Crosshair
episodes
episodes.
for
Yeah.
sure. I don't think it's a complete waste of time watching the entire season. It's just
Yeah.
that, like, going forward, they aren't as necessary if you're doing rewatches
Yeah.
of stuff. But yeah, a hearty recommendation. Absolutely stunning animation. I still really like the core group dynamic of the Bad Batch. They're doing interesting things with the Empire story and
Yeah.
everything, and the Clone Uprising. And Crosshair's arc was the
Mm-hmm.
highlight. So yeah. Do you have one pro and one con, Scott, for season 2?
I would say the pro would be it probably would be the animation with it. Because
Mhm.
with it, unlike with Clone Wars, I'm going to compare it to Clone Wars. I mean, yeah, like that's very much earlier animation stuff that we had with it.
Mhm.
But even though we might be revisiting some familiar locales like Coruscant and Kashyyyk and stuff, I mean, some of the new art designs for stuff really help them stand out a little bit more. Or like when we're on
Totally.
like Box Canyon Planet, it's definitely a little bit more dynamic of a feel to it.
And I think they also take full advantage of it being an animated show, because those are the shows where you can go full blown with the Star Wars universe, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's way harder to pull that off in live action, right? That's probably why Tatooine is featured so heavily in the movies. It's like, well, we could go to this desert that's like a country over.
But to go to the planet with like the giant purple plants and stuff and
Yeah,
the orange
and
trees.
have it look good
Yeah.
too, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing to do that and then take like an Avatar amount of time to make it look good,
Yeah.
but no one has that kind of time on their hands, especially for Disney, who's trying to crank out Star Wars every
Yeah.
month. Um, One con for you?
Um Maybe just a little bit of mid-season adventure of the week stuff. Um
Hmm.
it like definitely, yes, we have the fun adventures with it, but that's where it's just like, now, yeah, we are just having fun with just the crew as you know them. Like we're not having like any real gut punch emotional things.
Hmm.
Like to me, the first two episodes with like the batch and them like trying to recover like those spoils of wars and stuff,
Hmm.
and kind of just like the aftermath of Camino being a little bit more on the back burner, I felt like was
Yeah.
a little interesting. I mean, uh definitely, I mean, yeah, like hats off to Omega, like she really tries to get into it, but but that's where the boys are just like, focus on the mission first. So but then
Hmm.
you could also say, this is then what's going to set up like the whole emotional arc of the season is
Yep. Yeah, it was an odd like premiere for the season. It felt it was way more in line of like the fun adventure introduction to
yeah.
the next season. But yeah, it wasn't awful. Uh, my pro would probably be the uh, the score for Crosshair. That was like one of my favorite
Yeah.
things that they did for this show. It's like such an icon. Like, it feels like it's worthy of like adding to like the best of Star
Okay.
Wars tracks. It's like it's what like you always want like scores for Star Wars
Mhm.
projects to be, is iconic, and it's immediately recognizable.
That's the biggest thing,
Um,
right? Is like if you're trying to introduce that leitmotif to a character, having it stick, right?
mhm. Yeah, absolutely, and I think they landed on that for sure. My con would probably be the lack of, well, not lack of focus, but just the tonal shifts all over the
Yeah.
place. I think there was a more consistent through line in tone with the first
Yeah.
season. It definitely felt like, oh, is this episode
It,
Adventure of the Week, or is this heavy Empire stuff?
Yeah.
It was one or the other, and it wasn't always kind of in line. They kind of felt like pretty stark contrast.
I would say, like, especially if, like, you know, if you're going to watch more than one episode in one sitting, you know, like all of a sudden you're then having to change kind of your mental gears episode to episode.
Totally. It would probably feel even more jarring on a binge rewatch. So yeah, hopefully they kind of reel that in the future season. But I think it's still a recommendation. Like, if you enjoyed Clone Wars and haven't watched any of the Bad Batch, I definitely recommend season 1, but season 2 is still a decent follow-up. And if you have watched season 1 and you really enjoyed it, then I'd say at the very least watch the Crosshair episodes. I'm sure there'll be like a list on the Star Wars subreddit or somewhere where someone's compiled those in the next little while. Still definitely worth watching. Some of the better, absolutely. I think even this whole season is still some of the better Disney stuff they've done. In comparison to some projects.
I will say, like, even prepping for this, I liked rewatching some stuff, like even some of the season 1 stuff, where it's just like, I mean, it was interesting as I was getting ready, because after watching season 2, I went back and started rewatching some of season 1 stuff. I'm just like, even these 2 seasons alone have like such stark contrast to them, where it is like Clone War badass boys, you know, we're the best of the best, to then now it's just like on the run surviving the Empire, you know, with a kid. It's very, very totally different.
With fun kid adventures.
With fun kid adventures still, yeah.
I think we could say this is a safe recommendation. All right. That, I think, is going to do it for this episode of the NoScore Review Show. Scott, where can the people find you?
You can find me anywhere on the internet that has Scoptimus7 attached to it. I primarily have my YouTube and Twitch accounts. You can also find me on Twitter. Sometimes I'm funny on there. But mostly I just retweet video games and actually, Star Wars stuff as well. Yeah.
Soon it'll be video game Star Wars stuff, because we're getting Jedi Survivor pretty soon here. Cool. Do you have, I know I'm kind of expunging you of all of your recommendations with this back-to-back review show, but do you have any maybe Star Wars related recommendations?
Mandalorian season 3. One thing I also wanted to recommend is that, just with how Disney, as of this recording, has been kind of releasing them like same week over week, there are some very interesting parallels between them as well.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah. It's so weird. I don't want to get too much into spoilers for Mando season 3.
Save that for
we'll save it for the review show. But I'm interested to see how one of the things introduced in that show pays off, if it pays off in that season. I'm a little more lukewarm on season 3 right now, especially because I just rewatched season 1 and 2 to catch up my girlfriend. And just watching those and then tuning back into season 3, there's definitely a contrast, much like how season 1 and 2 of Bad Batch has. But we can get more into that on the review show.
But another Star Wars recommendation, definitely check the NoScore Andor review. Yeah.
Nice, yeah. Yeah, go check that out, and just go check out Andor, please, God, because Andor is easily like the best Star Wars thing Disney has done.
In like a decade.
So ever since buying it, it's like, man, how did they pull that off after the atrocities of some of their other things? But thank you once again, Scott, for joining me. Everyone listening and watching, you can keep listening and watching wherever you're finding this episode of the NoScore Review Show. Me and Scott did a double feature today of recordings. So if you haven't checked out the Super Mario Brothers movie review that we did, go check that out. It was another hearty recommendation. Go check out the Andor review show as well. And then later this month, April is Star Wars month this year because season 3 of Mando is wrapping up. So I'll be doing a review show on that. Jedi Survivor, Star Wars Jedi Survivor is coming out as well. I will, at the very least, be doing a first impressions playthrough of it on my NoScore Plays channel, so you could go check that out. And then there was there was another Star Wars thing I could have swore that was coming out. Maybe that's it. Yeah, there was 3 things. There was Bad Batch, Mando, and Jedi Survivor this month. But Star Wars Celebration is happening too, so there will be tons of announcements coming out for new Star Wars stuff. The Ahsoka trailer just dropped today as of this recording, so that's exciting. But yeah, stay tuned to the NoScore Review Show for more Star Wars reviews and reviews in general. You can follow me on all the socials at NoScore or at NoScore Reviews. If you are into video game Let's Plays, as I just mentioned, youtube.com/@NoScorePlays. I do a lot of indie game Let's Plays over there with the occasional big AAA series as well. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching and listening to this episode. Please also let us know what you thought of The Bad Batch Season 2 down in the comments, or you can also tweet me at NoScore Reviews. Give us your highlights, your lowlights, your pros, your cons. I love generating discussion on these things on the internet. More positive discussion out into the ether is always good. So yeah, let us know. And thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you on the next review. Bye-bye.